My name is Bolaji, and I'm telling you this story because I was there, standing in the dust of our village, Oke-Ira, when it all unfolded. I saw Ronke's eyes blaze with fire and tears, her hands trembling as she held those beads, the ones that changed everything. If you've ever walked the red earth of a Yoruba village, smelled the smoke of roasting yam, or heard the drums in the Egungun festival, you'll understand why this tale grips my heart. It's not just a story. It's our story of Oke-Ira, of a widow who stood against a billionaire, and of beads that carried secrets older than the baobabs. Sit down. Let me take you to that day, when the air itself seemed to hold its breath. It was a dry season, and the harmattan wind carried dust that stung your eyes. I was at the market, haggling over kola nuts with Mama Ibeji, when I heard the shout, "Fire! Fire in Ronke's shed!" I dropped my basket and ran, my wrapper flapping against my legs, joining the crowd sprinting toward the edge of Oke-Ira. Ronke's bead-making shed, a small mud brick hut behind her compound, was ablaze, flames licking the thatch roof like a hungry leopard. Ronke stood frozen, her dark eyes wide, clutching a string of coral beads as if they were her very soul. "My husband's beads!" she whispered, her voice breaking. I pulled her back as the men doused the flames with buckets of water from the stream. But the shed was gone, and with it, most of her work. Hundreds of beads, each one strung with the patience of a woman who'd known loss. Ronke was my friend, my sister in all but blood. She was 32, widowed 3 years ago when her husband, Femi, died in a lorry accident on the Lagos-Ibadan road. Femi was a bead maker, taught by his mother, who'd learned from hers, going back generations. Their beads weren't just ornaments. They were stories, woven into coral, glass, and bone, worn by chiefs and brides, carrying prayers and promises. Ronke took up his craft after his death, raising their son, Tolu, alone. She'd sit under the mango tree, her fingers nimble, stringing beads while singing Yoruba songs of Orunmila, the god of wisdom. But that fire wasn't an accident. It was a warning, and it came from a man whose name we whispered like a curse. Chief Adekunle Ojo, the billionaire from Lagos. Chief Ojo was born in Oke-Ira, or so he claimed when he rolled into our village 6 months ago in a black Range Rover, dust swirling around his convoy like a storm. He was tall, broad, with a voice that boomed like a talking drum, and he wore bodice so crisp it looked starched by angels. He'd made his billions in real estate, buying up Lagos like it was a market stall, and now he wanted Oke-Ira's land for a luxury resort. Progress, he called it, promising jobs and electricity. But we knew his kind, men who saw our mud brick homes as obstacles, our sacred groves as empty plots. Ronke's compound sat on prime land, near the stream where the goddess Osun was said to linger. Chief Ojo wanted it, and he'd offered Ronke a fortune to sell. She refused, her voice steady as she told him, "This is Femi's land, my son's inheritance. No money can buy our roots." The fire came a week after that refusal. I was with Ronke the next morning, helping her sift through the ashes of her shed. Tolu, only 8, clung to her wrapper, his eyes red from crying. "Mummy, who did this?" he asked. Ronke didn't answer, but I saw her grip tighten on the coral beads she'd saved from the flames. They were Femi's masterpiece, a necklace of red and white beads, each one carved with tiny symbols. Spirals, crosses, lines that seemed to dance in the sunlight. "These were for the Oba's daughter," she said softly. "Femi made them before he died. They're all I have left of him." I knew those beads were special, not just for their beauty, but for what they meant to Ronke. A link to Femi, to their ancestors, to Oke-Ira itself. That afternoon, the village gathered at the baobab tree, where Baba laid, our eldest elder, held court. His face, lying like the bark of the tree, was grim. "This fire is no coincidence," he said, his voice low. "Osun is angry. Or someone wants us to think so." The women murmured, touching their gelly head wraps, while the men shifted uneasily. Ronke stood up, her beads glinting around her neck. "It's Chief Ojo," she said. "He wants my land, and I said no. Now my shed is gone." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Accusing a man like Ojo was dangerous. But Ronke's eyes burned with fire fiercer than the one that took her shed. I believed her, but I was scared. Ojo wasn't just rich, he was connected. His friends in Abuja could make problems disappear, or people. I'd heard stories of villages razed for refusing developers, of families vanishing after crossing the wrong man. But Ronke wasn't one to back down. She'd always been stubborn, even as a girl, when we'd sneak to the stream to catch fish with our hands, laughing until the moon rose. Now, she was a mother, a widow, a woman carrying her husband's legacy in her hands. Bolaji, she told me that night, as we sat on her veranda, the air thick with the scent of palm oil stew. These beads aren't just beads. Femi said they hold a secret, something his mother told him. I need to find out what it is. The next day, Ronke went to the market to sell the few beads she'd saved, hoping to buy materials to rebuild. I went with her, carrying Tolu on my back. The Oke-Ira market was alive. Women selling yam, peppers, and smoked fish, men haggling over goats, children darting between stalls. Ronke sat up under a faded umbrella, her beads laid out on a cloth. That's when the billionaire's wife, Alhaja Bimp Ojo, appeared. She was a vision in gold bangles and a silk iro and buba, her gilly towering like a crown. She stopped at Ronke's stall, her eyes locking on the coral necklace. "This is exquisite," she said, her voice smooth as honey. "I'll take it for my daughter's wedding." She offered a sum that could rebuild Ronke's shed twice over. Ronke hesitated. I saw her fingers brush the beads, her lips moving silently as if praying. "These are special," she said. "They're not for sale." Alhaja's smile vanished. "Everything is for sale, widow," she said, her tone sharp. "Name your price." Ronke stood firm, shaking her head. Alhaja left, but not before whispering something to her driver, a burly man with eyes like a hawk. I felt a chill, like the harmattan had settled in my bones. "Ronke," I whispered, "be careful. That woman is trouble." 2 days later, the necklace was gone. Ronke had left it on her table while fetching water, and when she returned, it was missing. Tolu was sobbing, saying a man in a black cap had run from the compound. Ronke's face was stone, but her hands shook. "It's them," she said. "The Ojos. They want to break me." I wanted to tell her to let it go, to take Tolu and leave Oke-Ira, but I knew she wouldn't. Those beads were Femi's heart, and Ronke's too. She went to Shrine of Osun that evening, pouring palm wine on the earth and praying for guidance. I stood watch, holding Tolu's hand, as the fireflies danced around us. The next morning, Ronke called me to her hut. She'd found a letter tucked inside Femi's old bead-making box, written in his neat hand. It was faded, but I could read it. "The beads hold the truth of our land. The symbols tell a theft long ago by a man with no honor. Guard them, Ronke, for Oke-Ira." My heart raced. Femi had known something dangerous. Ronke's eyes were fierce. "The Ojos have taken more than my beads," she said. "I'm going to find out what." We went to Mama Aduk, the village's oldest bead maker, who lived near the sacred grove. Her hut smelled of herbs and wax. Her fingers gnarled from years of crafting. She studied the letter, then looked at Ronke with eyes like deep wells. "These beads," she said, "were made by your husband's grandmother for the Oba's family. They mark a boundary, a promise between Oke-Ira and the land. The symbols speak of a theft, a man who stole land from our people, land now claimed by the Ojos." I gasped. Chief Ojo's wealth, his empire, was built on stolen land? Mama Aduk warned, "Be careful, Ronke. The truth is a sharp knife." Ronke didn't stop. She went to the Oba's palace, a sprawling compound with mud walls painted with white chalk. The Oba, a kind but frail man, listened as Ronke spoke of the beads, the fire, the theft. He frowned, his fingers tracing the cowries on his staff. "The Ojos are powerful," he said. "But if what you say is true, the ancestors will judge." He gave Ronke permission to search the village archives, kept in a locked room behind the palace. I went with her, my heart pounding. The archives were dusty, filled with scrolls and carved wooden tablets. After hours, we found it. A record from 60 years ago, naming one Adebayo Ojo, Chief Ojo's father, as a man who forged a deed to claim Oke-Ira's streamside land. The truth was clear. The Ojo's wealth began with a lie, but proving it was dangerous. That night, as we left the palace. 2 men in black caps followed us. I grabbed Ronke's arm, pulling her into an alley behind the market. "They're Ojo's men," I whispered. Ronke's face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Let them come," she said. "I'm not afraid." I was, though. I thought of Tolu, of what would happen if we were caught. But Ronke was like a river, unstoppable. The next day, Al-Hajj Bimp returned to the village, this time with Chief Ojo himself. They came to Ronke's compound, their convoy blocking the road. Chief Ojo's voice was smooth, but his eyes were cold. "I hear you've been making accusations," he said. "Sell me your land, and I'll replace your beads, your shed, everything. Refuse, and you'll lose more than a necklace." Ronke stood tall, her wrapper tied tight. "You stole my husband's beads," she said, "and your father stole our land. The ancestors see you, Chief." The crowd gasped. I felt my knees weaken, but Ronke's courage held me up. Chief Ojo laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Prove it," he said, "or leave Oke-Ira." He left, but Al-Hajj lingered, her eyes on Ronke's neck, where a new string of beads hung. Simple ones, not the stolen heirloom. "You're a fool," she hissed. "You can't fight us." Ronke smiled, a dangerous smile. "Watch me," she said. Ronke had a plan, but she wouldn't tell me everything. "It's safer this way," she said, her voice soft but firm. She spent days weaving a new necklace, using beads she'd salvaged and new ones she'd made, each one carved with symbols like Femi's. She worked on a mango tree, singing softly as Tolu played nearby. I watched, my heart heavy. The village was divided. Some believed Ronke, others feared Ojo's power. Baba Lade called a meeting, urging unity, but fear hung over us like a storm cloud. The Egungun festival was coming, a time when ancestors walked among us, masked dancers in swirling robes. Ronke decided it was her chance. She presented her new necklace to the Oba during the festival, in front of the village, and revealed the truth. I begged her to reconsider. "Ojo's men are watching," I said. "They'll hurt you." Ronke touched my hand. "Bolaji, if I don't fight, who will? For Tolu, for Femi, for Oke-Ira." I couldn't argue with that. The festival was a riot of color and sound, drums pounding, women singing, children chasing masquerades. Ronke wore her new necklace, its beads catching the torchlight. She approached the Oba's dais, where Chief Ojo and Al-Hajj sat as guests of honor. My heart was in my throat as Ronke knelt before the Oba, offering the necklace. "This is for Oke-Ira," she said, her voice clear. "These beads tell our story of land stolen, of truth hidden. The Ojos built their wealth on our pain." The crowd fell silent. Chief Ojo stood, his face dark. "Lies," he shouted. But Ronke held up the archive scroll, its ink faded but clear. "This proves your father forged a deed. The land by the stream belongs to Oke-Ira, not you." Murmurs spread. Al-Hajj's face paled, her gold bangles clinking as she gripped her chair. The Oba took the scroll, his eyes narrowing as he read. Then he stood, his voice steady. "The ancestors have spoken through this woman. The land is ours." Chaos erupted. Ojo's men tried to grab Ronke, but the village men formed a wall around her, their machetes gleaming. I stood by Tolu, holding him close, my heart pounding. Chief Ojo stormed out, vowing revenge, but the village was alive, chanting Ronke's name. The Oba declared the land protected, and Ronke's beads, her new ones, were placed in the palace as a symbol of truth. But the story didn't end there. Weeks later, we learned the stolen necklace had been sold to a collector in London. Ronke didn't cry. She started teaching Tolu to make beads, her hands guiding his, her voice singing Femi songs. Chief Ojo's resort plans crumbled, his reputation tarnished. Some say he left Lagos, others say he's plotting still. But in Oke-Ira, we rebuilt Ronke's shed together as a village. I see her now, under the mango tree, her beads shining, her son laughing. She's more than a widow. She's our warrior, our weaver of truth. And those beads, they're more than coral and glass. They're Oke-Ira's heart, our history, our fight. If you come to our village, you'll see them strung on Ronke's neck, glinting in the sun. And you'll hear this story told by me Bolaji, who saw it all. So, Tell me, what would you do if the truth was in your hands?